I am live. I'm reading out of Eyes of Horus. It is a far memory book from Joan Marshal Grants, who lived from 1907 till 1989. This is the story of Ra. He is the son of a priestess of Ra and an heir to the nomarch of the Oryx. He grows up in a corrupt land devoted to the worship of Set, the Lord of Fear. Here he is still a young boy. We are in part 2 of the book, and it's chapter 3, DARDAS, the Fisherman. DARDAS, the Fisherman. As it was already late afternoon, Sebek said that we should all spend the night at the village. Until we reached it, I did not realize that DARDAS was the village headsman. His house, built of unplastered mud brick, was larger than the others and had 4 rooms opening on a small walled garden. Jars of warm water for us to wash in had been set ready in the room I was to share with Sebek. There was clean matting on the floor and a fresh cover on each of the 2 bed places. Someone had even put a shallow dish filled with trails of blue convolutes on the high windowsill. Dada's eldest daughter ate with us, but when the meal was finished she left us alone with her father. At first he had been a little diffident, but soon he began to talk more freely. I saw that to him the rest of Egypt was an alien country. Even those who lived in the adjoining nomes of the hare and the jackal might have been Asiatics. Listening to him made me realize that for all I knew of the rest of the 2 lands, they might indeed be alien. I was nearly 14, yet had never been outside the boundaries of the Oryx. Sebek had been outside them, but why did he never speak of it? I had supposed it was because everything he had seen on those brief journeys was too familiar to be of interest. Why was the Oryx different? Why did even father so seldom go beyond his own lands? Sebek was tired. Only Kelsey held back his yawns, and when he went to bed I stayed and talked to DARDAS. A boy and a fisherman who was already growing old, talking together on the night a crocodile was killed. I wonder if a man who wore the double crown cried out in his sleep at an echo from the future. This is the story which DARDAS told me. I was born in a village downriver, but though it was less than 5 days' journey from the boundary of the Oryx, it might have been among foreigners that I grew up. So different is their way of life to ours. The priests taught us that the gods must be propitiated by gifts, and that if these were considered unworthy, a plague or a famine would be sent as punishment. So when it was more than 12 years ago, the river fell lower than in living memory. It was easy for us to believe it was a sign of Not's anger that the water stank and the mud flats grew wider every day. My brother and I took our last possessions of any value. It was a necklace which had belonged to my mother, 5 turquoise beads on a knotted cord, and added to it what was being collected from the 4 other villages which paid tribute to the same temple. Our spokesman took these offerings to the town, exchanging them for gold, which, before being taken to the temple, was made into the form of a fish. Still, the river did not rise, and when the spokesman went again to the temple, he was told that Nut would not relent until one of us had been made sacrifice to the river. There were some brave enough to speak against this command, but they were soon silenced, for the people were beginning to fear that the river had forever forsaken us, and fear breeds faster than lice in a foreigner's head. Until the sacrifice was chosen, no one knew ease. Whispers crept like thieves from house to house. Who shall it be? Which of us has angered not and made us suffer? Because of their ignorance they chose the one who was least like themselves. She was a woman named Haya, who, though blind since birth, had shown herself to have a sight which is not possessed by ordinary people. The others found it easy to forget how she had always been gentle and had given them cause to honour her. But I could not forget how when I was a child she had saved me from becoming a cripple. I had been lame for a long time, and Haya had come to my mother and asked if she might be allowed to look for the cause of my hurt. My leg was swollen and I could not sleep for pain. Haya took the foot between her hands and put it against her forehead. Then she said, "There is a thorn, small and curved, deep in the soft flesh, under the instep. It is the seed of the pain and must be cut out." She marked my foot with quail's blood where the cut must be made. The thorn was found and the wound soon healed. Because of Haya, I was not lame any more. Yet to my shame I made no open protest when they bound her hands and told her she must die. She walked serenely between the men who took her, smiling as though she were the captive of a children's game. They made her prisoner in a little hut where no one would live, since a woman had died there in childbirth. And through the thin mud walls I could hear her singing to the river as a girl sings to her young lover. It was 5 days to the dark of the moon, the time appointed for the sacrifice. Her songs brought a new fear to the village. Why was she not afraid of death? What knowledge had she which was hidden from them? No one was willing to bring her death, yet none dared question the priest's authority. When I said that I and my brother would drown her from my boat, the others rejoiced and praised our courage, for they thought that at the moment of death she might make her sins fail upon us and condemn us to join her in the caverns of the underworld. No one watched to take her from the hut. I think they feared she might cast a spell on them. My brother had asked where we should take her, but I told him she would tell us when the time came. Even the boat seemed changed when we gained steerage way. There was a life in the mast and the sail was eager for the wind. Until we were well out of the bank, I dared not tell her that we were going to set her free, lest by her joy she would betray herself to a spy lurking in the reeds. But when I did, she showed no surprise and said, "I know, you told me yesterday." I saw my brother's hand tighten on the steering oar, for he knew no one had speech with her since she was in the hut. She turned to him. "Why are you surprised that I should know of it before DARDAS told me? Had you forgotten the thorn which made him lame?" I asked where she wished us to take her, and she said, "Follow in the wake of the white barge." When I did not answer, she pointed up the empty river. "Surely you can see it too? There is no other boat within sound or hearing, and it is a dark night with few stars." She smiled. "Forgive me. I forgot that sometimes I see what is hidden from other people. Keep on upriver until I see the helmsman of the barge change course, or he tells me to land." The wind held steady from the north, and dawn found us between unfamiliar banks. During the next 2 days we passed barges heavy laden with stone from the southern quarries, and once a war galley of 40 oars. I had brought food with us, but she ate little, though she had had only water and uncooked meal for 5 days. It was evening when we came in sight of a large village on the west bank. Then she said, "The helmsman of the white barge tells me it is here we shall find the house I have seen in my dreams. It stands alone, the most southerly of the houses. There is a white wall around it, and a fig tree grows by the gate in the wall. Take me there, and I shall remember the name of him who told me to come. I remember that 3 boats were tied up to the landing stage, and a child was playing with a white kid beside the path up to the village. At first I did not know why the people seemed strange. Then I realized it was because the women were singing as they carried brimming water jars from the well, and the men who tilted the fields looked strong and content. Beyond the village we came to a wide road bordered with sycamores, and at the end of it there was a long wall with a fig tree growing by the door, even as she had said. I knocked, and the door opened by a woman with a child on her shoulder. Hayab said to her, "This is the house of Rodain, and I am Hayab, the blind woman to whom he spoke in a dream, bidding me to come here." The woman did not seem surprised to see us. She smiled and said, "He is waiting to greet you in the name of the watchers of the horizon." She led us into a garden, and beside a fish pool sat a man who, by his clothes, we knew to be of noble rank. When we would have prostrated ourselves before him, he shook his head and gave us the greeting used between equals. He called Hayab by her name and spoke to her as though they were friends long parted. When I said that my brother and I must get back to our boat, Rodan said that a room had been prepared for us and that we must rest and eat before deciding whether we wished to return to our own village. The room to which he took us was finer than any we had ever seen before. On a table there was fruit and food and wild duck and cold roast kid and wine in alabaster cups. It was the first time we had drunk wine. It was smooth and dark, strong as sunlight. Suddenly my brother began to laugh as though he were a child again. He stood up, swaying a little. "Since our father died, I have feared death. And now I know that I was a quail chick, fearing even the shadow of the bird scarer. Death was so insignificant that I cannot remember what it looked like. Can you remember us falling out of the boat, DARDAS, when we were drowning? Who is he whom we call Rodin? Is he Ra or one of his brothers? I drank a toast to death, who steered us here and waited not for thanks. The next morning I left my brother to sleep, for he seemed reluctant to wake, perhaps fearing to find the dream had vanished. I went in search of Rodin and found him sitting under a vine trellis beyond the fish pool. He asked me how my brother and I had fared, and then spoke of Haya, saying she would stay on in his household and learn the harp strings which would accompany her singing. Then he said, "You are wondering why you are not afraid of me, for since a child you have been taught to fear what you do not fully understand. You have been told to accept authority without questioning its source, but I will answer your questions and demand no allegiance. Why have we come here? How did Hayab know that your house was near this village? I know that she has never been more than a little way from the place where she was born. She has never seen you, for she has always been blind. Yet you greeted each other as friends. Even your priest must have told you that we are born many times. Is it then so strange to meet a friend whose face is unfamiliar? And what is more natural than to turn to a friend when you are in trouble? But how did she know of you? Are your priests so ignorant that they have not taught you that dreams may be a surer messenger than the swiftest runner? I know nothing of magic. I'm a fisherman, not a priest. Yet you followed a helmsman you could not see. Was that the action of a man heavy with earth? No, you came here because you recognized the wisdom of Hayab, and, loving it, you ceased to fear the shadow. Why are the people of your village different to ours? Even the children are not afraid to see a stranger. Because they know that the god of fear rules only in the underworld, unless men give him power by setting his image in their hearts. It is to Ra or his brothers that my people address their prayers, and so they live in peace. There is an empty house in my village. Live there for a month, and only then decide whether you will return to your own people or live on in the Oryx. That is the end of my story and the beginning of my life, said DARDAS, for I learned happiness in the Oryx. I hope you enjoyed that. It is Sunday night, the 20th of August.